So, in our previous class, we ended where we saw that Sethi, actually, here the narrative returns back to the past event again, that is Sethi's life in slavery as a flashback. So here again, we return back to Sethi's past life, and we saw that Sethi escaped from her life in slavery, and she met baby Sags. Who is baby Sags? We all know that baby Sags. She was actually the mother-in-law of Sethi, that is the mother of Hel, Sethi's husband, and baby Sags. She was also a slave, but later she was freed from the life of slavery by her son, Hel. Okay, so baby Sags, she is uh, Hel, her son, actually bought her freedom. And another significant role of this particular character, that is baby Sags, was that she provided a kind of a force, a kind of a stabilizing force for Sethi and Denver. So she was a kind of a inspiring figure for Sethi and Denver as well. So this was baby Sags. So Sethi escaped from the plantation, and she visited baby Sags. Uh, so here, this was actually chapter 14 actually, uh, and now we will start from chapter 15. And in chapter 15, we see that Sethi, when she visits her mother's-in-law's house, that is baby Sal's house, and here her husband Hel was also thought to be dead, but we know that he was actually actually went mad when he saw Sethi being tortured by uh, uh, the nephews of the schoolmaster, okay, the school teacher actually. And here we see that the story stresses the importance of community. So this is a very significant uh, aspect, that is, we know that, as I said before, that slaves are never allowed to make a community or to live socially. Okay, so they were always separated from their family members, their near or dear ones. So they had to live separately, because as we know that when we live uh, like in a society, or when we make a community or a kind of union, then we become strong. And slaves were never allowed to become strong, and that is why they were denied to the life of a community. But here we see that after the arrival of Sethi, here you see that they started a kind of a community. This was the first time that they got the taste of the life of a community. So this is very significant uh, incident in Sethi's life. Okay, and now they start sharing their collective memories. Okay, their terrible experiences, and this worked as a kind of healing touch for one another, and this helped to make a kind of a solidarity among them. But anyway, baby Sags and her family that soon became vulnerable, uh, because as we know that a kind of a, approaching doom that visited very soon. And this disastrous event reveals itself in chapter 16. Okay, so now we come to chapter 16. Here we see the school teacher, that is the cruel overseer of that plantation, the school teacher, uh, and he has come to take Sethi and her children back into plantation, back into slavery. So the school teacher, that cruel overseer of the plantation, he has come to take back Sethi and her children. And this kind of action was legal at that time. Uh, that is the law under the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And this act actually stated that the runaway slaves could be reclaimed even from a free state. You know what is a free state? That is, a free state means where slaves are thought to be slaves. They are not. They could not be made slave legally. Anyway, this kind of act uh, stated that the runaway slaves, so slaves who escaped the plantation, they could be reclaimed by their masters even if they escape to a free state. And that is why the school teacher, he has come to reclaim uh, Sethi and her children. And here we get a kind of a highly poignant description, a highly uh, uh, intense kind of description of that cruel incident. And this description that Morrison gives here, that really creates a kind of a shocking situation. And here we see that the narrative builds up the atmosphere of doom and deflects the reader's attention from the horror of the central scene. So the horror of the central scene, that is the infanticide, that is killing of a child. So that was the most horrible scene of this novel. The narrative also switches viewpoints, positioning the reader in the perspective of school teacher. So here the narrative actually presents the story from the perspective of the school teacher. Okay. And we see that the school teacher was highly racist, and the readers are allowed to look at the incident from the school teacher, that is from the perspective of the white onlooker. Okay, as the school teacher belongs to the white class, and this kind of representation of the incident that creates the tension of the story. And from the perspective, that is from the viewpoint of the school teacher, Sethi is described as a nigger, that is a black woman, a nigger woman, holding a blood-soaked child to her chest. The school teacher shows no sympathy for the dead and is only irritated that he has lost his property. So the school teacher has no sympathy for the fact that Sethi uh, killed her own child, but he was only concerned with the fact that uh, a slave, the future slave, is uh, destroyed. Okay, so he was irritated that he has lost his property. Property, because slaves were seen as property, and Sethi's child, which is killed by her mother, was also a property for the school teacher, because she will also be made a slave in future. So that so it was a huge loss on the part of the school teacher, and that is why he got so irritated. Okay, and that is why we see that the school teacher violated the motherhood of Sethi. Okay, as she killed her child, and that uh, actually uh, frustrated the school teacher's attempt to make Sethi and Sethi's children, that is the future generation, slaves. So that attempt was frustrated by Sethi, and that is why we see that the school teacher got so much enraged that he violated the motherhood of Sethi, and he ordered his nephew to destroy her the milk from her breast. So here we see that the school teacher does not realize that Sethi loves her children so much that he would rather kill them than allow them to be dehumanized by slavery. So the school, this was beyond the uh, understanding of the school teacher. He could not understand why Sethi killed her own child. Now we come to the next chapter, chapter 17, and this chapter details Sethi's act of infanticide from another character's point of view, Stampede. So this was another character who helped Sethi to escape from the life of slavery. So here it is narrated from his point of view, Stampede. Although Paul D refuses to believe this story, Sethi convinces him that it is true. Okay, so Sethi was narrating this fact to Paul D, and Paul D was so shocked while he heard this particular incident. He couldn't believe it. Okay, so it was really very difficult to believe that a mother could kill her own child in such a manner. So Aldi thought that this story could not be true. Anyway, in the next chapter, chapter 18, we see that Sethi is allowed for the first time to express her own repressed memory of the day. So we know that Sethi, she always had been trying to suppress her own past memories. But here we see that this is the first time that she expressed her repressed memory of that particular day. However, she has trouble articulating the story. Instead, she explains how much she loved and protected her children. And Sethi's first priority has always been her children. So here the theme of motherhood is again emphasized. Uh, even a slave uh, has uh, could have such a kind of intense affection for her child. So that is why we see that she insists uh, as she talks about her freedom, okay, and her intense big love for her children and her initial happiness in that house. Okay, so here the part one of the novel ends. Now we come to the part two of the story. And part two marks the shift in the reader's position from incomplete to complete knowledge of Sethi's act of infanticide. So, this infanticide, which is the central idea, the central theme of this novel, and this incident uh, repeatedly uh, enters into the narrative. And here we see that in part two, it is completely explained. The stories of Denver's birth and Poldy's past have reached completion too. Okay, so not only Sethi's horrible past, but also Denver's birth, Poldy's again his horrible memory, all have reached completion in the part two of the story. And part two also builds on Sethi's present relationship with Beloved. So this is another significant aspect, but theme of part two. So here we see that in part two, the relationship of between Sethi and Beloved uh, is explained, and the narrative in chapter 9, sorry, not chapter 9, chapter 19 actually. So chapter 19, it falls into part 2. So here chapter 19 is uh, switches between Stampede and Sethi. So these two characters, they narrate the story in chapter 19. And Stampede, he blames himself for Baldy's departure, and he approaches 124, that is the house where Sethi presently lives, to make amends, thinking specifically that uh, baby sharks and the honor that was her due. So he returns back to that house of baby sharks uh, to return the honor that was her due. Anyway, back at that house, after a playful afternoon of ice skating, Sethi realizes Beloved's true identity. So here we see that Sethi uh, begins to realize Beloved's true identity, or her the true meaning of her arrival in her life. She accepts Beloved, and this represents her innermost desire and the reincarnation of Beloved that she murdered, the daughter that she murdered. Sethi now feels that Baldy tried to trick her, that he encourages her to think about a different world, so that he did not even recognize her own daughter. So Sethi begins to suspect Baldy's intention. He thought that Baldy was actually trying to separate Sethi from her own child, own daughter. Now she knows the world is in this room. This here is all there is all there needs to be, is what he says. So he thinks that uh, with the coming of Beloved in her life has become fulfilled. She revises an earlier image of the three shadows holding hands. As we remember that uh, Sethi, Baldy, and Denver, they went to a fair, and while they are returning back to their house, they are holding each other's hand. And Sethi saw the shadow of the three people holding each other's hand. And that was a kind of a happy image, a kind of happy thought for her, and that indicated that maybe they were going to make a good family. But now that thought is revised by Sethi, and now she starts to believe that the hands belong to her, and her two daughters, and not Paul D. Okay, so this is the change that happened in Sethi's life with the coming of Beloved. Sethi hopes that with the return of Beloved, she will no longer have to remember or explain, because Beloved understands it all. However, for the rest of the novel, Beloved will try relentlessly to explain to Beloved how she killed her, begging for forgiveness. So she repeatedly begged for forgiveness to her daughter, that is Beloved, and she explained to her that incident. And Sethi, although she wants to be wrapped in a timeless present, her memory returns to the past as she considers the crimes that white people have committed against her and her loved ones. She had tried to keep these memories at bay until Poldy dug it up. Okay, now we come to chapter 20, and here we see that Toni Morrison uses a particular narrative technique which is called stream of consciousness. Okay, stream of consciousness technique. So for the first four chapters, here we see that she is using stream of consciousness technique. Stream of consciousness technique is a kind of a narrative technique. That is the way a writer represents the story through language. So here, this type of particular narrative technique is used to express uh, the psychological aspect of a particular character. Okay, so it actually focuses on the uh, uh, inner world of a character than the outside world. Okay, so it focuses on the mind rather than the external incidents. So such kind of narrative generally represents what is actually going on in the mind, not the uh, outside incidents. Okay, so here stream of consciousness technique is used, and we know that stream of consciousness in stream of consciousness technique, the punctuations and grammatical order are not strictly maintained, because we know that when we think not systematically. The past, present, future all crisscross. Uh, so it actually represents the thought process, how a human being actually thinks. So chapter 20 that focuses on Sethi's first person account of Beloved's return. Sethi remembers the past in short images, and she reiterates that she wanted to kill her children in order to save them from the horror of slavery. She recalls being forced to give up her child's milk, the milk a symbol of motherhood. Sethi wrongly believes that with the return of Beloved, she has found peace. Okay, so this is a kind of mistake on the part of Sethi, that uh, she felt that her problem is solved with the arrival of Sethi. She has found peace. So she starts to believe that she has found peace, and now she can sleep like the drowned. So Sethi's love for Beloved is both a desire to possess and life sustaining substance. Okay, Sethi says that when I tell you mine, I also mean I am yours. I wouldn't draw breath without my children. I wouldn't draw my breath without my children. So this expression reveals how much love she has for her children, and she explains it to beloved. So the story thus points to the danger of her excessive love and also the complexity of motherhood. So motherhood is a very significant theme of this story, and this theme is repeatedly uh, uh, pointed out by the narrator. And here we see that Denver's relationship with uh, beloved, that is also explained. And here Denver makes a very important remark. She says, "Beloved is my sister. I swallowed her blood right along with my mother's milk." So Denver states that it is actually chapter 21. So in this chapter, Denver makes this particular remark, and she says that she remembers the day that Sethi murdered the baby, that is her daughter, her sister, and held Denver to her nipple, forcing her to swallow both the mother's milk and the sister's blood. So Denver was actually milking her mother while her mother was killing her own child. Okay, she was holding Denver to her blood-stained nipple, and Denver swallows milk from her sister's blood. So that was a very horrible image that is created by the narrator. So this powerful image symbolizes the bond of motherhood and also the danger of excess loving. So in one way, it expresses the intense love of a mother, and at another side, it also shows or exposes the horror of intense love. Just as Denver swallows the blood that results from her mother's crime, she embodies her mother's trauma by carrying the guilt inside of her. So, a kind of a sense of guilt that is embedded in her mind from the very beginning of her childhood. So, Denver now admits she spent much of her childhood afraid of her mother, who killed one of her own daughters. So, Denver was actually got afraid of her mother. Denver understands her brothers left not only because of the ghost, but also because their mother had attempted to kill them. So this was Denver's understanding or realization of her mother. From the first time she saw her, Denver has believed that beloved is the reincarnation of her sister. So in the same way, just like her mother, Denver was also thinking that beloved was the reincarnation of uh, that uh, dead child. Okay, her sister, and she wants to protect her from Sethi. So another kind of tension that builds up in the mind of Denver, because she was anticipating that beloved could be again killed by her mother. Denver also considers her father, whom she never met, and she waits for his return. Anyway, And now in chapter 22, in chapter 22, we again, our focus is again on beloved. So beloved gets the opportunity to tell her story in this particular chapter. And this chapter contains one certain statement by beloved. Beloved says, I am beloved and she is mine. So this chapter, which is told from beloved's point of view, and this is constructed in very short uh, sentences without use of punctuations. As I said, that it is narrated from stream of consciousness technique. And the following chapter, that is chapter 23, it begins with beloved's affirmation, I am beloved and she is mine. And she again believes she has found her mother, whom she believes to be Sethi, and this time she will not lose her. Okay, so this time she is not going to lose her. So in this chapter, the narrative seems to shift into a dialogue of questions and answers between different voices. So different voices are in this particular chapter, which are included in this narrative. Uh, and this chapter that evokes various themes like the theme of ownership, identity, and love. And by the end of this chapter, the voices emerge into a kind of a chorus. The kind of a chorus that is narrated here. The chorus goes like, beloved, you are my sister, you are my daughter, you are my face, you are me. I have found you again. You have come back to me. You are my beloved. You are mine. You are mine. You are mine. So, uh, uh, this is the kind of a chorus that is uh, narrated here. These final lines of this chapter symbolize the character's need for beloved. Okay, and beloved, she symbolizes hope and desire. So beloved is here represented as a way to survive, a way to survive for all the characters. So beloved symbolizes the ghost of Sethi's daughter as well as the ghost of slavery. Okay, the ghost of Sethi's daughter as well as the ghost of slavery. So this is the function of beloved, because she evokes memory. Okay, she represents the African American history and the collective memory as well. And she also evokes individual memory of Sethi and Baldi, the collective unconscious of African Americans. So she evokes the collective unconscious of African Americans. Uh, so her emergence is actually a kind of an embodiment of the collective pain and rage of millions of slaves who died on the Middle Passage. Okay, so she is just an incarnation of the collective pain and suffering of all those millions of slaves who were killed mercilessly. So, beloved is both a healer and a destroyer. Her arrival is necessary as well as troubling. Now we come to chapter 24. So in chapter 24, we come across Sethi's confession. And after Sethi's confession, Baldi leaves 124 house to stay in a church. She pulls away from the community and focuses on his own past. So Baldi, he completely withdraws himself again from the community, and he starts living all alone. Okay, so he got afraid when he came to know about that story, because as I said that he was it was very difficult for him to believe in that story that a mother would kill her own child. So he was so terribly shocked that he uh, separated himself from that family. But he said, Sethi said to Aldi that she actually did it. That is, she actually killed her child to out hurt the hurter. To out hurt the hurter. It's a very significant expression that she killed her own child to out hurt the hurter. The hurter is the school teacher uh, or the all the cruel overseer or the masters who treated their slaves just like animal and their property. So it was a kind of a rebel against those white people. So here part two concludes uh, this this section. It concludes with all these uh, painful question, the question of himself and for America. So a very significant question. Tell me this one thing. How much is a nigger supposed to take? Tell me how much. So how much pain a nigger, that is a black man, is supposed to undergo? Now we come to part three. So here we see the bond between Sethi and beloved that gets more intense, and the raw emotions here gets much more enriched uh, as their relationship reveals a kind of a destructive nature. So their intense love between in their intense love finally takes a kind of a destructive nature. Sethi becomes obsessive about playing with beloved, and she stops going to work altogether and eventually loses her job. So Sethi got so much busy with beloved that she lost her own job. And the play and games soon change into fighting. And beloved is proved to be uh, too tyrannical, and she takes the best of everything, and she grows bigger and bigger, as if consuming Sethi. She imitated Sethi, talked the way she did, laughed her laugh, and used her body the same way down to the walk. So, beloved was gradually taking the place of Sethi, almost engulfing Sethi. So, figuratively, the past is now swallowing Sethi. So, as beloved is symbolized as Sethi's past, so it appears that as if Sethi's past, in the form of beloved, uh, is going to swallow her fully. Sethi recounts over and over the painful stories the beloved that actually wants to listen to. And she refuses to forgive Sethi for her past actions. So, um, after listening to that short story, beloved was not ready to uh, forgive her at any cost. And here we see that Denver realizes uh, uh, a kind of a Denver, the character of Denver here changes, and that is a very significant aspect of this story. That here we see that Denver, who was living a life of loneliness, she never mixed with the neighbors of their society, and she was always lived a life of fear. Even she was afraid of her mother. But now we see that Denver is going outside, and she was mixing with other people, and she was trying to find a job. So this is a very significant change that was happening in the life of Denver. So Denver, that suddenly she transforms from an isolated, sheltered girl into the outgoing, very significant character of the novel. Okay, and she is doing pursuing a job, and she thinks that her job has changed her nature as well. Okay, and Denver is also trying to protect beloved from Sethi. Neither Sethi nor beloved seem concerned that the house is empty of food. So as the relationship between Sethi and beloved was gradually becoming intense, it became so intense, they become so much obsessed with one another that they completely lost any sense, any practical sense, and they were not sure or aware of the fact that they were not having food. So it was Denver who has to take some steps to save their family. Okay, so finally, Denver makes the crucial decision to step off the edge of the world. So she has to finally face the world. She hesitates on the front porch, terrified to leave the premises of 124 because she has never left that house. And then she hears baby Saag's gentle laugh. As I said, that baby Saags, she always functioned as a very inspiring figure for uh, Denver and Sethi, and that is Denver here, uh, she appeared to hear uh, baby Saag's voices. Okay, as if baby Saag encourages her to go on, as if she is reminding her of her ancestors' courage and strength, especially the courage of her mother. And thus we see that Denver is suddenly transformed from an isolated, uh, uh, an introvert girl into uh, a very different figure. Okay, she takes responsibility of herself and her family. She seems to best understand the words Baby Suggs had been preaching, that her life is her own. So this is the learning that she got from Baby Suggs preaching, that your life is your own. She sets out for work, approaching the Abolitionists, you know that abolitionists were the people who helped the slaves to escape from their life of slavery. They are called abolitionists. So she approached the abolitionists couple who are called Bedouins who helped her to get job. Okay. However, as Denver's outside life improved, her home life deteriorated. So, when Denver was getting a kind of a new life, her life in home got uh, terribly, uh, a kind of a terrible shock because it was deteriorating with the intense and destructive love of Sethi and beloved. Now, re-energized with food, Sethi and beloved resume their destructive relationship. Sometimes beloved chokes at her own throat, drawing blood, metaphorically swallowing Sethi. The bigger beloved got, the smaller Sethi become. The brighter beloved's eyes, the more those eyes that used never to look away become slits of sleeplessness. So Sethi fades as beloved attempts to consume her, and Denver understands their cycle will never end. Here we meet another character whose name is Ella, Ella. Uh, this character was also mentioned before. Who is Ella? Ella was actually one of Baby Shark's neighbors. Okay, and Ella, she actually escorted Sethi and Denver from the river bank to Baby Shark's house. Okay, when they first arrived. This particular character also has another role in this story uh, because in later years we see that after that is the present time of that story at that moment we see that Ella had a very significant role, and what was that role? That Ella tried to organize the local women to exorcise beloved from the house. So, as beloved was thought to be a ghost, so Ella took a kind of initiative to solve the problem. Finally, because the problem was going too difficult for the family, so she tried to resolve the situation. That is why she organized the local women and tried to exorcise beloved. So this was Ella. So here we come to this particular character. So Ella hears the story of how beloved is slowly sucking the life of Sethi, and that is why she organizes a kind of a rescue. And she tried to ostracize Sethi to punish her for killing her own daughter. And as she was also an ex-slave, she could understand Sethi's problem or her motive. Okay, this Elas also had a horrible past while she was a slave, made a slave. Her young age when she was just an adolescent girl. She was uh, sold as a sex slave, and having been impregnated by her master, she refused to nurse her baby. So this is another significant aspect of this character, that though she got pregnant with several children when she got raped by her masters, she refused to nurture those children. So this was a kind of a resistance that she built up against the system of slavery. So a mother who refused to nurture her own children. So just like Sethi, she also raised resistance, a kind of a resistance against that real practice of slavery. So she refused to be a mother. She refused to be a mother. So Ella, she organized all the women to exercise beloved from that house, and a kind of combined voices of women that arose. Uh, it was as though the clearing had come to her with all its heat and simmering leaves, but the voices of women searched for the right combination. The sound that broke the back of words. It broke over Sethi, and she trembled like the baptized in its wash. So here is a reference to baptism uh, in the process of exorcism. So baptism, that reference to baptism that signifies the moment that the moment will give Sethi a new beginning. Okay, the women's voices finally saved Sethi from being devoured by her past. The power of the women's voices joined together as a creative capacity that symbolizes Sethi's cycle from spiritual death to rebirth. So these collective voices of those women trying to exorcise the ghost of beloved that symbolizes a kind of uh, a organized resistance against slavery and the psychological trauma of slavery. Okay, and Denver also takes the role of reviving this community. So a kind of a community begins to build up again, and Denver takes the responsibility of reviving that community. Her efforts lead to everyone's salvation. So she has a very important role uh, in the reunion of that community. She provides a link to the white community and a sign of potential healing. The women act as a force against what they consider to be evil, the dead or devil child. So, beloved was considered as a devil child. Yet, the image that emerges of beloved standing there naked and pregnant, thunder black and glistening, also evokes the image of a beautiful African ancestral mother. The pregnant beloved symbolizes the true bridge between past and future. Now we come to chapter number 27. And in 27 chapter, we see that the house becomes calm and quiet because beloved is gone. Beloved is gone, that is the ghost is gone. That means that past, that horrible past is finally, uh, uh, it is overpowered by the present. And Denver now begins to look more like a father. So she is taking the responsibility of the house. She is taking care of her mother. Okay, and Denver also begins working. So Denver also begins to working for Godwin's and makes plans to attend school. So this is another significant step in the life of Denver that she begins to plan. She is planning to attend school. So Denver is now in a position to usurp school teacher's position. So very significant expression. So Denver is now taking the position of the school teachers actually, to usurp the school teacher's position. That is taking the position of the school teacher. That is, she is taking education, she is doing job, she is earning, so she is now assuming the position of the white master. Okay, she must take away from the school teacher the power to define African Americans. So she must acquire the power that the school teacher possessed, and she must take away from him that power to define their own identity as African Americans. So, a very significant role played by Denver. Now, toward the end of the novel, uh, Paul D finds Sethi lying in Baby Shark's bed, unbathed, and fading out of reality. And she believes that she is planning to die, that she has given up. So Paul D promises to take care of her. So Paul D uh, finally he returns back again and he promises to take care of Sethi. And looking at Sethi, she recognizes there are too many things to feel about this woman. When he first heard about Sethi's past, Paul D withdrew from Sethi and the community. Now he returns to her. His wandering finally is over, and his present thoughts suggest that he has confronted and come to peace with both his and Sethi's past. He now responds to Sethi with love and talk of the future. So this is the first time they are talking about the future. So they are no longer uh, engrossed with their past memory. So this is the first time they are talking about future, talking about hope. He tells her, "We got more yesterday than anybody. We need some kind of tomorrow." So we need some kind of tomorrow as we had enough of yesterdays. And Sethi believes she has lost her daughter once again, calling beloved her best thing. So we see that Sethi's uh, deep affection, her profound motherhood is still uh, there. Uh, Her motherly affection, she's still haunted by her motherly affection. So such a kind of an intense emotion that still uh, sustains within her. And she calls beloved her best thing. But here Paul D disagrees. He tells her, "You are your best thing." Okay, your best thing, Sethi, you are. So a very powerful expression by Paul D that beyond your motherhood, beyond your uh, uh, horrible past, you have your own life. You have your own identity as an individual. Okay, and that is your best thing. And Sethi's last question, me, affirms Baby Shark's words. So this repeated, the word me is uh, repeated twice. That is also very significant that Sethi, for the first time, she is looking at her own self, me, not my child, not my horrible past, uh, but uh, my own self. Okay, just like a mirror image. When we stand in front of a mirror and we look at our own image, we see only uh, uh, our own self. So she, for the first time, looks at her own self. Okay, so a kind of a mirror image. When a child is born, in the initial stage, the child thought that it is actually uh, yeah, it could not identify or separate itself from her mother. It actually thought that uh, her mother's body and its body are the same. Okay, it could not separate herself from the mother. But when the child is uh, presented before the mirror, it first identifies uh, that it is actually that he is or she is actually a different person. So her identity is born or created at that moment. So here we see that Sethi first recognizes her own self. So this word me repeated twice by uh, Sethi, and it affirms Baby Shark's words that loving oneself leads to freedom. So a very significant expression that loving oneself leads to freedom. So if you love yourself, if you can learn to love yourself, if you can feel satisfied with what you are, if you become confident with your own self, uh, so that is a learning that Sethi finally uh, got from life. So this was the first time she got very much satisfied with her own self. So loving oneself leads to freedom. So this is the actual test of freedom when you learn to love yourself. While beloved represents an unchangeable past, Sethi, Paul D, and Denver illustrate possibilities of present and future. So beloved represents past, and Sethi, Baldi, and Denver now illustrate the possibilities of the present and future. So this is the change that happened in the characters of this story. As they evolved from slaves into free men and women, so this was the first time they became free men and women. So now we have come almost at the end of the story in chapter 28. We see that beloved is no longer a fleshy form, so she is no longer there. Although the narrative implies the community has forgotten her, it also reveals that her footprints come and go. So, uh, beloved is thought to have uh, fled from that house, but there is also an indication that her presence is sometimes felt that stirs up memories of beloved. Thus, her presence does not completely disappear. The refrain that this is not a story to pass on. So, at the end of the story, there is a refrain. Uh, it is not a story to pass on. But this refrain works ironically, as we know that this story has been passed on and continues to haunt the readers. Okay, so now I end here. This is my last lecture on Beloved. Okay, now I have a question to you. My question is, the three characters, Sethi, Paul D, and Denver, uh, at the end of the story, we see that they are finally uh, uh, made free men and women. They finally become free from their life of slavery, as it is said in the end of the story, as we see in the end of the story that they finally got freedom. Hmm. But uh, they were actually free, or they're free um, in legal terms, because we know that the story, this novel actually begins at a time when slavery was completely abolished in America. Okay, so it was completely abolished. That means they were already free slaves. But why does the narrator say that at the end of the story that they finally got freedom from the life of slavery? Why? আমার প্রশ্নটা বুঝতে পেরেছো? Did you understand my question? বুঝতে পেরেছো? আচ্ছা, তাহলে বলো। ওরা তো ফ্রি স্লেভই ছিল, তাই না? কারণ গল্পটা যে সময়ের আহ, আহ, যে 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 টাইম সেটিং যেটা আমরা যেটা জানি সেটা হচ্ছে যে স্লেভারি যখন অ্যাবলিশড হলো, তাই না? তার মোটামুটি ভাবে 8 বছর পর থেকে গল্পটা লেখা। তাহলে ওরা তো সবাই ফ্রি স্লেভ। তাহলে কেন গল্পের শেষে বলা হলো যে যে ফাইনালি দে গট ফ্রিডম, দে বিকেম ফ্রি মেন অ্যান্ড উইমেন? কেন এটা বলা হলো? ভেরি বেসিক কোয়েশ্চেন, বলো। Because they finally moved from their past memory of slavery. Yes. Okay, Shayanti লিখছে, because sir, by the next of the novel, they were no longer bound by the psychological restraints of past, and finally, at this point, they tore the chains of past and started to think about their own future. হুম, তুমি তো বিরাট বড় আনসার লিখে দিয়েছো। আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। Finally, they overpowered their past. Okay, 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 okay. বাহ, যাই হোক। হ্যাঁ, তোমরা বলেছো ঠিকই, বাট আই ওয়ান্টেড টু হিয়ার ফ্রম ইউ। ওকে, যাই হোক, তোমরা আনসারটা ঠিক দিয়েছো। বাকিরা বুঝতে পেরেছো যে কেন এটা বলা হলো, মানে কারণটা কি? হ্যাঁ, কারোর বুঝতে অসুবিধা হলো? হুম,
না
কেউ
স্যার,
একজন
বোঝা যাচ্ছে।
এক্সপ্লেন, বোঝা গেছে? হ্যাঁ, ঋষিলা কি লিখছে? They moved from the past memories of the slavery. Yes, memories of the slavery, এটাই সবচেয়ে ইম্পর্টেন্ট কথা, যেটা তোমরা সবাই লিখেছো। যাই হোক, যে এখানে মেমোরিটা সবচেয়ে ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে সেই haunting memory, that terrible past that they uh, uh, with all their effort they were trying to suppress within their heart. Now they finally got freedom from that from that tension, from that heavy pressure of suppression of their cruel past. So this is the most significant thing, the most significant uh, step in their life, that they finally got freedom from that terrible past. So এটা হচ্ছে যে the legal freedom is not everything unless you got free from that psychological pressure. That is the true freedom. ওকে, এবং যেটা আমরা দেখলাম যে সেথি ফাইনালি he learns to love her own self. So without that learning, she could not be free from that terrible pressure of the past. Anyway, থ্যাংক ইউ অল। তাহলে আজকে আমাদের লেকচারটা এখানে শেষ হলো। আমরা বিলাভেটের উপরে নেক্সট এরপরে একটা টেস্ট নেব। ঠিক আছে, আজকে তাহলে এটুকুই থাক। গুড নাইট টু অল।